Live stream has started. Thank you. As I said, good morning, everybody. My name's Councillor Sam Forsyth, and I'll be chairing this meeting of Subcommittee C of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, could I please invite everybody just to mute your microphones for a moment so we improve the sound quality for this morning. Could you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of the committee members unless you are the person speaking. This is to improve the quality and to reduce the bandwidth. Thank you. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. I can see somebody else is going to join. I think this is.
So, Chair, that's the applicant.
Yes, he should be allowed to join, please.
I've admitted him, Chair. He's now here.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Sam Forsyth. I'll just briefly recap what I've said. My name's Councillor Sam Forsyth and I'll be chairing this meeting. Could I ask everybody please to mute their microphones unless they are speaking, and for everybody please to turn their cameras off with the exception of committee members unless you are the person speaking. This is to reduce the bandwidth. Committee members will keep their cameras switched on throughout the hearing, and I can see Councillor Davis and Councillor Wagg have done that. Thank you. Could everybody please who is attending today's meeting please ensure that their mobile phones and other devices are on silent, and please ensure you're situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or any unnecessary noise, for example a radio, a television or any other mobile device. Thank you. As you can hear, I'm speaking slowly and clearly, so everybody hopefully follow. It's important for what I hope are obvious reasons that everybody attending this meeting and making representations are able to hear me and the members of the subcommittee and the officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meeting. I can confirm that this is a public meeting and it is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that any member of the general public can view it if they wish to do so. I will remind you again that the meeting is being webcast for live or subsequent broadcast via the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. But I please remind all members that they must declare any relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any such declarations will be recorded in the minutes, and I'll just pause there for a moment to see if there is any declaration. Nope, thank you. Apologies for this meeting was submitted on behalf of Councillor Cooner, and as you can see, Councillor Davis is the nominated substitute member for today. Can I welcome you to this hearing, which is in respect of an application made by Sweet Stuff, 9 Orphanage Road, Erdington in Birmingham, B24 9HP. Can I begin with some introductions? As I say, I'm Councillor Sam Forsyth and I chair this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are other members of the subcommittee that you should be able to see on screen. Councillor Wagg, Penny Wagg, and Councillor Phil Davis as well. Also present in this meeting, and I will ask them just to confirm, is the Licensing Officer, Shahid Yasser.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you. Committee Manager, Katie Townsend.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. And Committee Lawyer, Joanne Swampahali.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Could I ask all parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, Mr. Arshad. I can see you indicating. Thank you. And I believe you have someone who's acting on your behalf, Mr. Jordan from PR Retail Consultants. Mr. Jordan.
Yes, present, Chair.
Thank you. In addition, we have someone here who's going to make oral representations. I believe we have Councillor Gareth Moore as well. Councillor Moore?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Good morning. Could I ask if any persons making representations wishes to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing? No,
Chair.
I'll take. Thank you. I'll take that as no one wishes to withdraw. Thank you. Can I assume, please, that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee procedurals rules set out with today's hearing notice? Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may, at my discretion, amend the procedure to reflect the fact that this meeting is to line. And I just emphasise it is no less serious for the fact that it is being broadcast online. And I also assure you that any such amendments will not in any period. We'll be using the chat function on Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of those icons on your toolbar is a speech bubble. It's generally the second one from the middle, which is a chat function. Please click that bubble to go into the chat. If you don't have access to the chat function for any reason, please use the raise a hand function to indicate you wish to speak. That button is usually the fourth button on the right from the toolbar, on the toolbar at the top. You can also indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. And we ask that people please do not speak over anybody, so everybody has their say. Can you please all confirm that you have access to the chat facility by typing your own name in now, please, and the officers will type in their job title. This meeting will not start until everyone has done that. Thank you.
Hello, Chair. It's the committee lawyer. Just to confirm, because I've had to dial in today, I'm afraid I don't have access to the chat. That's why I'm not typing in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I don't seem to have access to the chat.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. I can see you've raised your hand. Thank you. I think everybody else has access to the chat. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? If you do, please indicate that you wish to raise a point by typing speak into the chat function or raising a hand function now. Mr. Jordan, your hand is still raised. Do you wish to raise a preliminary point, or is that just...
No, I'm having trouble with this technology this time. No, I will just speak. Sorry about that. I can't seem to delete that.
No.
Apologise.
Don't worry. No apology required. Thank you. I'll now briefly outline the procedure we'll be following at today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer, Mr. Yasser, will present the report. Then the applicant will be asked to present their case. We are asking if you could keep this to approximately 20 minutes or so, please. Then those making representations will be able to present their case. Again, we're asking if this can be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Could I ask all parties who are speaking to speak as slowly and as clearly as possible, because the officers are taking notes, handwritten notes. The meeting is also being live streamed on the council's website. If at any point it's somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Again, this is to reduce any unnecessary interference. Members of the committee will
I've lost the chair's signal. Is that just me? Is Councillor Davis here?
She's disappeared for me as well, Chair. It's Joanne.
Yes, and for me, Chair.
We'll just have to pause then, won't we, until she comes back?
Yes.
Is she aware? Is she aware that
I
she's...
hear everybody clearly. Can people not hear me?
No, you're breaking up and freezing.
Will it help if you turn your camera off, Councillor Forsyth?
I'll try and do that now. See, that makes
Chair,
it better.
should we turn our cameras off as well as members? And then that may help as well.
Thank you. Thank
Penny, do you want to turn your... There we are.
Thank you. And perhaps I can invite Councillor Moore as well to turn his camera off. Thank you. Can people hear me at the moment?
Yes. Yes, it's clearer actually now.
Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. Thank you, Councillor Davis. We've just had a perfect example of what needs to happen if you cannot hear or are having problems with your internet connection. It happens to all of us. If it happens or if at any stage you can't hear me, please either use the chat function or alert us by raising your hand. And then I will either repeat myself or I'll ask the person speaking to repeat what they've just said. It's important that we use the chat function as soon as you are unable to hear anybody talking. It may be that the problem's caused by people still having microphones or cameras on, and that can sometimes create interference. Otherwise, sometimes, as we've just seen, it's poor internet connection. And I also point out that occasionally it may be necessary for the committee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to this meeting and continue. In addition, if at any point the live stream being broadcast on the Council's website fails, I will ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until that live stream is being restored. If at any time we go into private session, the meeting manager will pause that live stream, and once the private part of the meeting is over, I'm the meeting manager to confirm that live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make brief closing submissions, to make brief closing representations, what they want to say. And can I stress, and this is important, that no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. If at any point managers need to clarify a point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. We will make a decision when we go into private session after we've heard all of the evidence, and the parties will be notified of the decision of this subcommittee within 5 working days. Now that sounds like an awful lot, but I hope it's reasonably straightforward for everybody. Now, having said that, could I please ask the licensing officer, Mr. Yasser, to present the report, please? Can I remind you to speak as slowly and as clearly as you can, please? Mr. Yasser.
Thank you very much, Chair. So Ahmad Arshad applied on the 29th of April 2022 for the grant of a premises licence for Sweet Stuff, 9 Orphanage Road, Erdington, Birmingham, B24 9HP. Councillors, the purpose of the report before you today is to consider representations that have been made in respect of an application for a premises licence which seeks to permit the provision of late night refreshment to operate from 11 p.m. until 4 a.m. Monday to Sunday. The premises wish to remain open to the public from 11 a.m. until 4 a.m. Monday to Sunday. Now, representations have been received from other persons, and these are attached to appendices 1 to 3 of your report. The application form is attached to Appendix 4. Conditions have been agreed with West Midlands Police, and these are attached to Appendix 5. Conditions have also been agreed with Birmingham City Council Licensing Enforcement, and those conditions are attached to Appendix 6 of your report. There's also a site location plan, Appendix 7. Now, when carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options which are available to you today are to grant the license in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the license subject to conditions modified to such an extent as you consider appropriate, or to exclude from the license any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. Thank you, Chair.
Looks as though we may have another comms issue here. Councillor Davis here.
Yes, Chair, we can't hear you.
I think the chair has dropped off my screen. Is she still on the call?
No, she's left the meeting.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
she's back, sorry.
okay.
I'm here. Thank you. I've come back. I dropped out for a few months. Mr. Ratton, could I just ask you to repeat the last few minutes of your presentations? I dropped out for a minute just so I can have heard what you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the application forms attached to Appendix 4 of your report. The conditions that have been agreed with West Midlands Police are attached to Appendix 5. There's also some conditions that have been agreed with Licensing Enforcement, and these are attached to Appendix 6 of your report. There's site location plans at Appendix 7. So when carrying out its licensing function, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. Now, the licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Councillors, the options which are available to you today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application, or to reject the application, or to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as you consider appropriate, or exclude from the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. Thank you, Chair. Did you manage to catch that?
I did. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Could I now ask please, that I think Mr. Jordan, you're speaking on behalf of the applicant. Would you like to make your presentation, please, your submissions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, the late night refreshment is needed for possible delivery collection of hot drink and possible hot desserts. So that would have to be covered under the late night refreshment. So it's really low key late night refreshment, really. That's all it's needed for. As I understand it, it's a dessert shop premises. So, and also that would be available for collection or delivery. There will be litter patrols and signage reminding customers to respect local residents and leave quietly. We feel it's unlikely that this type of operation will add to any disturbance in the area. We're not sure if any residents in the immediate vicinity have objected. We don't have addresses of people who have objected. Now, the experts, as guidance 182 states, that the experts on crime and disorder are the police, and police conditions have been agreed, and the other agreed conditions with environmental health, and no responsible authorities are objecting to this application at the moment. The delivery drivers will be trained not to make a noise, keep the noise level absolute minimum, and staff will be trained not to serve any rowdy customers, and to remind if any patrons are considered a nuisance, to remind them that they wouldn't be served again. But with this type of thing, it's a dessert shop, as far as we are aware, and the name Sweet Stuff. We think to impose conditions to prevent a harm, it should be self-evident that harm will occur. We see no evidence that harm will occur through these premises. We understand it's not uncommon for that area for premises to be open until 4 AM and takeaways. It's just needed that he may want to deliver hot drink. I keep saying hot food, sorry, hot drink, and maybe a hot dessert. It may be possible. It's going to be low level. We understand, but that facility is needed. So we think the objections are fair enough. We think they're more speculative, that things will go wrong, but it's not like dependent on late night refreshment for the bulk of the trade. It's liable to be a minor part of the trading. So we think on the balance of probabilities, it should be granted. We can understand people having concerns, but we feel it won't add to that. We've agreed the conditions, so that's basically what we're saying on that. So that's we'll come back on anything that's maybe said in the summing up.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jordan, can I just ask you to confirm, please, that that is all the submissions that you would like to make at this stage?
Yes, I mean, we'll come back on anything that's brought up in any representations, if there's anything that comes up on the representations. Thank
you, Mr. Jordan. Could I ask at this stage if there are any questions from members? Stage, please. Councillor Wagg?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Yes, I'd just like to pick up the issue of the proximity of residents. If this may be a question councillors are better placed, the Councillor Moore is better placed to answer if later on. But I wonder, Mr. Jordan, you mentioned residents. How close are the residents then to the premises? I'm looking at the map, which is at the end of our papers. I think it's page 27. 29 given the notation. I can see the location of the premises.
I think some Ahmed said there's flats above some of the premises, but the actual flat above the actual premises is, I think Ahmed will confirm, I think it's owned by themselves. So I think he could clarify that. But I think some of the flats above the commercial units do have, above the commercial units, there are some flats, but there is the one above the 9 Orphanage Road is, I think I understand it belongs to Ahmed.
Okay, so essentially you've got commercial units on the ground floor in the usual pattern on a commercial street, on a high street, but you've got flats above, some flats above.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll ask Councillor Moore because he'll probably know more about the actual locality in that way. But thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Mr. Jordan, I've just got one question for you, please. In your presentation, in your submissions, you alluded to litter trolls. Could you just give the committee some more detail about that, please?
Yeah, they'll keep an eye on any litter generated from their premises.
What is proposed and what is planned?
Yeah, well, ongoing really, towards the end of the any licence allowance granted. Also at the beginning of opening up the shop, and then throughout the day really, sort of every couple of hours have a look round and see. I don't think they should be picking up litter that's not generated by them, but they don't feel there's going to be a lot of litter because they generally don't consume these desserts in the street. I don't think is common. They normally take them home, you understand, but they'll keep an eye on that on a regular basis every couple of hours, have a look round, clear up any litter, 50 yards this way, 50 yards the other way, just to make sure there's nothing, of a nuisance in that respect.
And just a supplementary question in relation to that, and will the staff have the appropriate training in respect of dealing with any litter problem?
Yeah, I mean, they just have to collect it and dispose of it in the waste, the waste contract bins, and but obviously not to pick up anything that to pick it up with a not with your hands, with a not sure what they're called. You clip them up and put them in. But obviously, if something's of danger, they'd have to report that. Report to police if it's a dangerous. Or anything to do with drugs, but it's unlikely with the desserts, we don't think.
Thank you. I know those other people who'd like to make representations to make their presentation, their submissions now.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I won't put
Hello?
my camera on because of your.
Katie?
Hello. So I would say I won't put my camera on because of the difficulties you're having, Chair. So, but obviously I'm Councillor Gareth Moore, Councillor for Erdington, represented the ward for 11 years now. Obviously very familiar with the high street and the challenges that exist. Mainly that's related to off licences and alcohol premises, which I'm sure committee members, certainly the chair, Councillor Phil Davis, sorry, the chair of the licensing committee will be familiar with. So today we're discussing a takeaway premises. This is another issue which is a problem on the high street, a growth in the number of them, and that's slightly challenging because the vast majority of them don't require a licence. They usually will close around 11. They don't require a licence to sell late night refreshment after that. There are a few that do have a licence, particularly in close proximity to these premises, but generally they don't go on beyond midnight. 4 a.m. is a very, very exceptionally in this part of Erdington. The nearest ones nearby that have a licence beyond 11 are Pizza Hut and KFC, which are just round the corner on the high street itself. They're open till midnight and midnight. The only place that closely resembles this is the premises next door, Pizza Go Go, which does have a licence till 4 a.m, but very, very rarely opens till that late. And we have had issues in relation to Pizza Go Go already in terms of litter, noise disturbance, etc. People visiting the premises late at night, often intoxicated, causing a lot of disruption. So that already happens with that premises. That is low level antisocial behaviour, and residents are rightly concerned that the addition of another premises in this vicinity will cause further problems. Now, I appreciate this is a dessert takeaway of some description, and whilst we don't have any of these in the ward already, I do know that they are in other parts of the city, and certainly from my experience of them, that they are incredibly disruptive, because they will usually attract large numbers of people who will come in cars. They will get their desserts and then they sit in their cars and they leave the doors open and they chat very loudly and they blast music very, very loudly as well. So, you know, I am concerned that we're going to have this situation taking place right here, and I wasn't filled with any confidence by the applicant's agent representative, because they didn't talk about any experience that they have in running such a premises, how they would deal with any disruptive customers, other than that they'll have some training. There was a lot of I don't think this, I don't think that, which doesn't fill me with confidence. He said, as far as we're aware, we're only selling this, which again doesn't fill me with confidence as to what will actually be taking place with these premises. And they're only interested in picking up their own litter, which doesn't demonstrate to me there's any real commitment to Erdington or the local community. They're only interested in their own business interests, which is also very, very disappointing. In terms of the number of residents nearby, Councillor Davis asked a very, very good question. There are flats above the shops as referred to within our representation. I'm acutely aware of that because I know there was a resident who was complaining about Bennett's Caribbean restaurant, which is now Pizza Go Go. So there's definitely residents living within the vicinity. There's also Nexus Point, which is just off the map. It's in the top right corner of the junction to the right of the premises. And as you can see in the corner, Councillor Davis, there are a number of terraced roads. That's Edward Road in the bottom left corner of the map there. Also to the top right of the corner, there is Enterprise House, which again is another flatted development taking place in Erdington. And then the run of shops on the high street also have flats above. So there are a number of residential properties nearby, and that is alluded to within the representations as well, because some residents have taken the time to email in. A lot of residents are concerned about emailing in because their details will be disclosed and they fear repercussions. We do try and ensure residents that it's important that they do share any concerns that they have, and clearly, you know, some have taken the opportunity to do that and have added to the representation that we have made. So I don't intend to dwell on in any great detail, but our main concern is that this is a premises which will cause substantial public nuisance. The Section 182 guidance, it makes it clear that you have to consider public nuisance in all of its forms, whether that's low level or higher level. We have real concerns that this is going to cause substantial disruption in an area which already has some disruption, and the cumulative impact of that. And the fact that we have no faith in the premises to manage this properly based on the information that has been shared with us so far. We did hope to try and secure conditions, as you can see from my representation in Appendix 1, to try and mitigate that. We don't want to oppose this entirely. Unfortunately, we've had no correspondence from the applicant or their representative, so we don't know if they're willing to agree to some of those conditions. Some of them were alluded to elsewhere within the document pack. But our main concern is we want to see a reduction in the opening hours. Certainly something to around midnight or midnight we would be mindful to be content with, because that is in keeping with the other late night premises that are within the vicinity. But we're very, very concerned at the idea that this is going to be a magnet for antisocial behaviour, with people congregating till 4 a.m, consuming whatever hot drinks or desserts that they may have. So happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore, at this stage, are there any other further representations you wish to make? I know you said you're quite happy to answer questions, but is there anything you'd like to add at this stage before I turn the floor over to see if there are any questions?
No, the only thing I would add, Chair, is unless there's a reduction in the opening hours, this premises will be contrary to the licensing objectives. So that is our position.
Thank you, Councillor. As you've indicated, a number of people have also made written representations, which of course we will take on board as well. I will just ask the other members of the committee if they have any questions at this stage. Councillor Wagg. Councillor Wagg, you're still on mute.
If the councillor could answer me, how long has the shop been a dessert shop at the moment?
This is an application, so it's not been a dessert shop. I understand it was previously a Chinese takeaway, which, as far as I can see, never had a license, so presumably closed at 11 p.m.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wagg. Councillor Davies, do you have any questions?
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Moore, for referring to the position on residents. You mentioned the sort of cumulative impact of the number of premises. Can you put a figure on the number of premises that are open selling food beyond 11 o'clock, in that particular part of Erdington?
Yes, so according to the council's public register of licence applications, in terms of hot food, there are only 3 premises that I can identify that have a licence beyond 11 o'clock. Those are Pizza Go-Go, which is next door, as I mentioned, Pizza Hut, which is round the corner on, I can't remember what exactly number High Street it is, but I can see 40. I think 40 is KFC, and so Pizza Hut's just a little bit further up. So I should also point out that there is a licensed premises directly opposite the Pheasant Plucker. I hope I said that correctly, and that often is open till late. That often has a lot of rowdy drunk people as well. So so we've got 2 takeaways, or potentially 2 late night premises opposite a licensed premises selling alcohol in a very, very small, narrow part of Orphanage Road. So that there's quite a cocktail of disruption that can be caused by that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's very helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, can I just ask you this? Can I just ask you to pick up, please? You mentioned during your submissions the question of the flats above the premises, and that there had been a complaint by a lady that lived in one of the flats. Could you just help the committee, please, firstly, with the number of flats there are in the immediate location, and whether the flat above the premises is occupied at the moment?
So as far as I'm aware, there must be at least 4 directly in this run, basing on the fact that each premises has a flat, at least 1 flat above it. So obviously there's one above this exact premises which has been alluded to, and whilst that may be empty, that could be occupied at some point in the future. I'm not entirely sure which of the 4 the resident who complained lived in, but she was complaining about, as I said, the predecessor to Pizza Go-Go. I believe that there are flats above the shops opposite as well, of which there must be at least another 4. So, but I don't know the exact details or the occupancy levels of that. So, but I know certainly there are, based on complaints that I've had from residents, that there are people who live in these flats above shops, and that there are several. As you may not be aware, Chair, you can convert above retail units into residential without planning permission. So it's very difficult to have an accurate record of the number of residential units above commercial on high streets such as Erdington, and obviously monitoring the occupancy rates of that is also difficult. So I can't give you an exact figure, I'm afraid.
Thank you. That's very, thank you. I'll just check with the any other questions. Councillor Wagg, Councillor Davies?
None from me, no.
Thank you. Thank you. I can see Councillor Wagg indicating there isn't any either. Thank you. Could I ask, please, if Mr. Jordan, as you're acting on behalf of the applicant, would you wish to make any closing representations? in response to any of the matters that have been raised?
Chair,
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
sorry.
We should go to Councillor Moore first for his closing submission, and then the applicant can make their closing submission at the end.
Certainly. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Chair. I don't intend to be anything repetitive, but based on the information that we've received today, we don't have any confidence in the applicant to be able to run these premises in an effective way to mitigate the noise disruption and antisocial behaviour that we strongly believe will take place at these premises if its licence is granted till 4 AM. We remain open to an earlier closing time. But if that is not something the applicant is willing to agree to, either the committee must refuse the application or impose a shorter closing time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll now turn to Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jordan, would you like to make any closing remarks on behalf of the applicant, please?
Yes, I mean, there are other methods of controlling any antisocial behaviour. But the environmental health are not objecting to this, and the police, and these are two responsible authorities, are not objecting to the granting of this licence. So they are happy with the application. Councillor may not be happy, but as far as I'm aware, we judge it on the merits of this application, which is a minor part of the operation and may be needed just for the odd occasions when they send hot drink or hot desserts. There's no restriction under licensing for cold drinks and cold desserts. I'm not convinced that any residents in the local area have objected to this, because there's no representations, it would seem, from in the vicinity, and the councillor's not confirmed. I don't think that anybody actually made representation from, and doesn't seem to have appeared in the pack. It's pretty speculative. I think it has to be, as far as I'm concerned, these premises have to be judged on the merits of this application and the balance of probabilities. But I think that what it comes down to is guidance 182 states the experts are the police, the experts are environmental health, the experts are licensing. And they're not here making objections today. So they've had a look at the conditions on the licence and agreed additional conditions. To say they've got no respect for the Erdington is a bit speculative. I don't think it's necessarily safe to pick up litter from the whole of the high street, 50 yards either side. Obviously, they'll keep the front of their shop clear because they wouldn't want to that. But to pick up litter 50 yards one side and 50 yards the other, that's not yours. You know, would you be able to dispose of that legitimately anyway under a waste contract? I'm not so sure, but I don't think that means that they're not got any interest in the or disrespect for the neighbourhood. Yes, that's all we want to say on that. The responsible authorities, the experts, are not opposing this. I do appreciate that they have put in this regarding the 12 o'clock or 12:30. It will be for the committee to decide. I don't know if Ahmed wants to comment on that, what he thinks about an earlier closing time. Ahmed, would you like to comment on
Thank you very much, Jordan. You're right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what would you like to say about the councillor suggested?
Yeah, I would like to add that mainly after 11 o'clock, the business is mainly the delivery business. And there are not many customers coming inside the shop to pick up the takeaway.
So
and, for the drivers, we have our own car park behind the shop.
Well, just thinking about the timing, maybe deliveries. You're saying
going to interrupt. Forgive me, I'm going to interrupt. Could I ask that only one person speaks at a time? It is vitally important that everybody here can hear everybody. And the matter is being live streamed. If people speak across each other, It may not advance your case in any event, but it is important that everybody, including the general public, can hear people. So perhaps we can just allow Mr. Arshad to say what he likes, and then you'll have a few moments. Thank you. Mr. Arshad, would you like to continue, please?
Yeah, I would like to say that mainly the business after 11 o'clock is mainly the delivery business, and we have our own car park, which is very quiet at the back of the shop, and the flat above is vacant, and that also belongs to us, and there's nobody living there. So if the delivery driver goes on delivery and comes back, it's not going to cause no noise. I don't think so. Because what I've noticed, the next door Pizza Go-Go, they do not have much collection customers. Normally they do deliveries. Their deliveries are busy.
Thank you, Mr. Arshad. I'm just going to ask Mr. Jordan if there's anything else he'd like to say on your behalf. Mr. Jordan?
Yes, I think then it might alleviate things if it was just delivery only, and no members of the public admitted. After 11 doesn't seem to be, or after 12, if we were to say something like that, no members of the public admitted after 12, and delivery only service after 12, then that would be in their control as regards the antisocial behaviour. So that seems a good compromise, with closing at 12 to the public and delivery only after 12. I think that's what Ahmed's coming from now.
I'm just going to ask Councillor Moore if the hand is raised on purpose. If there's a matter that you'd like to raise, Councillor Moore.
I just wanted to add that I would very much welcome a condition that limited it from delivery only from 12, if they wish to remain open later, so that it would not be open to the public after 12, after midnight.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Can I thank everybody for attending this meeting, and for all the parties who've made their representations, and for everybody who's made their written representations as well, which we have and we will take into account. I'm now going to ask all the parties to leave this meeting, and for the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager, we will go into private session whilst the subcommittee makes its decision. Can I indicate that you're notified of this decision of this subcommittee within 5 working days? And can I thank you all? Thank you.